I think I lost myself in the process over the years. I was just that engineer, looked a certain way, talked the corporate speak. And in certain environments, they didn't enjoy the playful Deb. Like, what about this? Hey, we should start doing that. And sometimes you might lose your confidence because you can't be yourself. So if you can't find it in the corporate environment, have social outlets where you can. Sometimes you are met with adversity, questions. Let's defer this. Let's take that offline. Relationships. Who do you think might be the person that'll actually shoot it down? Why don't you meet with them ahead of time and say, this is an important initiative. I value your opinion. I know you always have something to say about, can I run this by you and let them enrich it, comment on it? You might change something as a result of it. By the time you actually go to present that, and again, it might be a touchy topic, you have a friend in the room because maybe they co-created some of the information.
Turn this up, turn this up.
Your professional development is one of the keys to your career success. When you combine your desire to grow with actionable steps, your journey to success becomes an incredible reality.
Hi, I'm Paul Ferrandi, aka Incredipaul, and welcome to Incredipaul Leadership, where we learn how to become the most incredible versions of ourselves by learning from each other. First off, if you're only listening to this episode, I want you to know that you can also watch it on YouTube. Regardless if you're listening or watching the show, I really appreciate your support. Today, I have the honor of having Deb Coviello, aka the Drop-In CEO, on the show. Deb's superpower is lowering the temperature and elevating conversations with empathy and patience. She's the author of The CEO's Compass, Your Guide to Get Back on Track, and the new CEO Playbook, Stop Chasing Results and Start Pursuing Peace of Mind. If that wasn't enough, she is also the long-running host of the podcast, The Drop-In CEO, top 1.5% globally among Apple Podcasts. So that was a little bit about you, which was already a lot. I was super excited about this conversation, but how about you introduce yourself the way you would do it?
All right. So, Paul, I just want to say thank you so much for having me on the show. What you do, the work that you do in support of young professionals, especially STEM professionals, as I was one of those as well, is so important because throughout my career, I was supported, but I don't think I had a sufficient support system to navigate some of the opportunities and challenges. And just knowing that you and your work and the people you work with are out there is so, so important. Never do this journey alone, despite how resilient you are. But yeah, I would say at the heart of who I am, and you'll get to know me because I'm a talker, I am a creative. I love interacting with people. I love creating good experiences. I used to be very talented singing, speaking, acting, all that kind of stuff. But somewhere along the line, while still good in school, and I was a talker, I somehow found my way into being really good at science and math and being celebrated for that. So I moved through high school, science, math, top 10%. And I said, well, biology, I really, really enjoy the sciences. Started college as a biology major. My mother tells me, Deb, you were pre-med. And I don't remember that. Mom remembers that stuff. But at the same time, I kind of had a change of heart. Still like the math and science, but I don't think I want to be in school forever. I said, maybe biomedical engineering. So I gave that a try, didn't lose any time, really, really enjoyed the problem solving, the collaboration, the technology, just super cool stuff. Learning how to make things happen like manufacturing. I fell in love with my manufacturing lab on how to make things from nothing. It was so cool. It was a major turning point and also a pivot that I said, I don't want to be a biomedical engineer. It wasn't in my heart. I love the science, but I didn't want to do experiments on animals, which is what we had to do as part of our studies, artificial hips, all that stuff. I was no longer impressed, but I still love problem solving. I still love creating. So I went into manufacturing. So I've had this wonderful career where I went into manufacturing, electronics, and then I eventually went into the flavors and fragrance industry, which is chemical manufacturing. But in the area of quality and operational excellence, how could I look at a process and make things better, faster, cheaper, safer, always problem solving and trying to make things better. So a lot of the creative work. And eventually I got to a position of being the head of quality for a multinational company, which, I was at the top of my game. But what I learned along the way is I used to be the smartest person in the room. And again, we as engineers or science professionals are celebrated for being those smart people and having the answers. But along the way, and I'm just giving you some advice as you move up in your career, at some point you might not be the smartest person in the room, and you can either go small and say, should I even be here? And feel and lose your confidence. On the other hand, the greater opportunity is what I went through is, well, how could I be a better leader? How could I mentor and coach the people that were reporting me because they were smarter than me? They were the scientists and the engineers. And I later learned my greatest gift to them was to be able to remove the barriers, build their confidence, help elevate the impact, their voice, their influence, and ultimately in that work. I started out in my last role. We were the last performing region from number 4 out of 4 regions. And when I started focusing on not being the smartest person or having all the answers, but unleashing the potential of my people by mentoring and coaching and giving them actionable feedback, I eventually moved up to number 2 after 18 months because I reflected. I changed my leadership style and I realized my gift was to give back and help others be able to fulfill their potential. And so, a little bit of fast forward, I left the corporate world, but even in the work that I do now as a consultant, dropping into small and medium sized companies, I'll help solve a problem. I'll solve a crisis. Again, we scientists and engineers are really good at that. But every time I go into the organization, I look at the people first. Where's their confidence? What's their capability? What's their capacity to do the work that I'm coming in there and trying to change and improve? And often I become their support system because we'll do work lockstep, arm in arm. But I also will see maybe there's a confidence issue. Maybe they could do things more efficiently. Maybe they just need to know how to influence better. And that's the work that I love to do. So that's through my consulting. I do a little one on one coaching. I love podcasting and sharing my insights with your audience, all in support of what you do is to give the tips, the tricks, the mindset, the behaviors, whatever, so that everybody that's listening can benefit. And so I'm just so grateful to share a bit about myself professionally. Married, 3 adult children, a curler. I'll talk about that if you want. And again,
Earlier, like,
throwing stones on ice. Yep.
yeah,
And I love cooking and entertaining. And so that's the
okay.
other side of me. I'm a Gemini, so I'm 2 different people. So you never know who you're talking to right now, but I'll be the engineer and the STEM professional for the moment.
I say go ahead and be both because you started off talking about the creative side of things, being a singer. Did you say dancer too? Did I hear it?
I could dance. I took ballet and tapped as a kid, but
Okay,
I
yeah,
used
yeah.
to be able to sing, and then something changed with my voice. Mind you, people love my voice now. I can't sing. Don't ask me to do karaoke now. Something happened. But I used to be an actor. They used to pull me in for the plays. I used to write. I used to talk to myself. I used to talk to anybody who would listen to me and always imagining and talking through things. Well, societies didn't always appreciate that. Deb, just deliver the results, get me that report, finish that initiative, get me that cost savings. And society didn't always like this voice. But again, in our pursuits of whatever we do, find an environment within work or outside of work where you can be yourself. So, podcasting, little secret, I can be myself completely. Say what I want, invite people that I want to speak. But, quite frankly, in the process of podcasting for the past 4 years or so, it's translated back into the work environment. I can be me. I can be a little playful. I can do an eye roll once in a while, like, oh my, are we really going to get through this crisis? But at the same time, it makes us a little bit human. And so that's another piece of advice I'd like to offer is engineers, STEM professionals celebrated for staying within the lines and getting, solving problems, but also don't lose yourself in the process. I think I lost myself in the process over the years. I was just that engineer, looked a certain way, talked the corporate speak. And in certain environments, they didn't enjoy the playful Deb. Like, what about this? Hey, we should start doing that. And sometimes you might lose your confidence because you can't be yourself. So if you can't find it in the corporate environment, have social outlets where you can be yourself, be your truest self. And eventually you'll find those environments that truly appreciate the smart you and the personal of you. So I'll stop there for now.
No, that's really good to have both aspects of it.
Right.
Like how you said, the smart you and the personal you, and finding those outlets, whether that is at work or outside of work. Because if you don't find that outlet, there's a part of you that's always going to feel missing. You're not going to have, you won't be your full self if you only are showing just part of yourself.
And you know, the interesting thing is before we got on this interview, I'd messaged you like I might be a few minutes late. But here's the thing, I had a super intense day. The super technical project manager, A personality, Deb, was on all day. But in the curling community, one of our curlers, one of my friends, had to have knee surgery. She just had the surgery yesterday. She can't cook for herself. So I spent the morning throwing together meals. I ran out, I delivered the food. She had some socialization, which she needs amidst trying to recover. And then I came back here. So despite having a super intense engineer like day, I had that outlet just to be me, to be in service, to cook and help her out. So again, we got to find that balance amidst practicing our craft.
That's really good. That makes me think of this whole concept of work-life balance, and it seems like you found it there. Was there a moment in time where you felt like maybe you were out of balance or you were more intentional about being balanced in your work and life?
So let's talk about the bad news or the bad stuff.
Okay.
So I'll get to the good side. So yes,
Okay.
absolutely. Because sometimes along the way, again, mentor, coach, the work you do, Paul, to help STEM, really, really important because I was celebrated for working hard, multitasking, working long hours, et cetera. And I got to a point at the end of my corporate career about 7 years ago, and I'm not that old, but I got to a point where despite me being superwoman, juggling things, deploying resources, emails, reports, et cetera, I'd come home at night and tell my husband, I said, I can't, the normal ways of relaxing, watching TV and maybe an adult beverage, a walk, I could not relax. And I said, something's got to change because I knew no longer had my system to decompress and find that balance. That was the beginning of the end because at the end of the day, the best thing that ever happened to me was I parted ways with that company. Again, I did wonderful work, but then I got the gift and the outlet and the opportunity to find like, what is the work I'm meant to do and seek that balance. And I will tell you over and over again since then, I will have the freedom of time and find balance. And then Deb gets busy again. Ooh, I've got this project. I could interview that person. And I speed up again. And my superpower of being able to do so much work, and we are celebrated for being resourceful, can also be your demise. Because then I find this pattern like every 6 months. Oh my God, I'm over it. Well, like right now, I got a huge backlog of podcast interviews and I'm saying they're all crammed in into June and July. And it's like, I can't do this to myself. So
Mm,
having the awareness that every once in a while, when you start ramping up, reflect, look at your schedule, look at your balance and say, wait a second. Did I just create the environment that I don't want to be in? And so I advise everybody every couple months, look at your schedule, look at that time you're spending with family or community or the work that you're doing and it doesn't have to be 50-50. If you've got good relationships in your family or community and they know you're busy or traveling at times, they will respect that. Because when you come back to them and you have that beverage, you go out for a bite to eat and you reconnect with humanity or the things that you love to do, that is balance. Because at the end of the day, whether we're working 40 hours a week, 30 or 80, do we have those things in our life that brings us to a place of just centeredness? I feel calm. My heart is not racing. I made a nice meal. I spent time just watching Netflix or something like that. If you can get those moments of either I'm in flow or I'm at peace or I'm at calm, despite the percentage, that's balance. That's balance.
I like that.
Yeah. But
Having
it's
those
hard.
feelings.
It's
Yeah.
hard. It's a skill you need to constantly work at, like lifting weights, which I don't like, but I have to keep working at it.
Yes, is definitely a skill. I like how you mentioned reflecting and the self-awareness piece at least
Yeah.
every couple months. Something I started doing, I think it was last year, or maybe it's just purely definitely less than 2 years, is I do like I have a quarterly reflection thing on my calendar that comes up. It happens every quarter, but I always forget about that. To just look at like what I've been doing, look at my goals, just evaluate life. Because otherwise, I think most people do a reflection like towards the end of the year, beginning of the year with like New Year's resolutions. But to do it more often, like even when you say a couple months, I think that's even better. Just to make
Yeah.
sure you're not in this constant in like fight or flight mode, honestly.
I know. I know. And in that pursuit, I'm still able to do good work, but do I have to do as much good work? I'm in a place right now where I'm not ready for retirement because there's still a lot of people I need to impact and connect with. But at the same time, I've got 3 adult children and, one of them, one set might, have kids at some point. So I want the freedom to be able, like they say, hey, mom, we need you. I want to be able to go. Or if I want to curl, a little bit more and go away on a weekend with women or men that I enjoy curling with. I don't want to like, oh, I better bring my laptop because I got to get this report done. No, no, I want to be able to plan for that. I'm smart. I can get my 40-ish hours done in 4 days and be able to go on a weekend and enjoy the company of others doing the things I love. Quarterly reflection, you might want to do it a little bit more often because next thing you know, no, I can't go out and do trivia tonight. I'm so tired and we start losing ourselves. So again, I'm still a work in progress, but again, everybody needs to just put something on the calendar, take a pause. Do I like where I'm at? Do I feel fulfilled? Am I getting enough rest? Do I feel strong and healthy? All of that matters. So yeah, reflection, important.
Yeah, that's so true. Getting enough rest, I think that's a good one because that's something I've been trying to be more focused on because I feel like a lot of times I don't realize I'm getting enough rest until I'm exhausted or at the point of exhaustion. I guess, have you felt that? And
Yes.
when yeah, you already know where I'm going with this. I guess when was the shift? Did you feel that shift happening when you were in your corporate roles that you were more intentional about that? Or was it after you kind of
After.
transitioned more to entrepreneurship?
After. It was afterwards when I was a little bit wiser and a few gray hairs that I cover up that I realized something's gotta change. Now, I don't wish for anybody to have an acute situation, either your personal health or a family member or community member. Something devastating happens in your life for which then you're put in a place of, "Oh, I better put the brakes on and change something." Be mindful now, look at where you're going, and say, "Is there something small I can change now?" Now, again, when I was running again, I think I'm of a generation. Husband worked, I worked, 3 kids. At one point, we had a nanny just to manage everything. It was go, go, go for success and financial reward and all that stuff, and yes, we want to be comfortable in life, but now as I get a little bit older, yeah, things happen. Bad things happen to good people around us. Life is short. Husband got sick at one point. He's fine now, but that kind of gives you pause. So I would say once I got out of the rat race or I took a major pause from corporate and again, starting my own consulting business, continually, I've learned a couple things like one performance coach worked for me says, are you a high achiever or high performer? High achieving is that person that crosses everything off your checklist. High performing is, am I well balanced and performing in all aspects of my life? And we had conversation. I say, oh boy, I am not. So I did start exercising a little bit more. I went to all my doctor's appointments. I met with a functional nutritionist because you only get certain blood work at the doctor. What other supplements or things can I do to keep this body running for as long as I could? So that was the first realization. Another one was I met with another person about I'm racing. I'm trying to get that big thing, that speaking gig, etc. And he says, what happens if you're constantly racing towards the future and then you get there and it's not that big a deal or you brush it off. Okay, I did that. Now what? We're never living in the present, which is a hard thing for people that have these high potential personalities. Go, go, go. I'm always trying to get stuff. I'm starting to learn enjoy these little wins. I had you on my show. I'm on your show now. These are little wins. We're getting to know each other. You never know where the trickle effect will happen. Somebody listens to this. Those are the little wins of just having a great conversation and getting to know each other. And lately, another mindset coach was, you need to take a few pit stops during the day. So even if I had 10 minutes or 30 minutes between meetings, I will just sit and try to be still and get that heart rate back down. Because the only way I'm going to be able to perform at a high level is I got to kind of reset during the day. And so I am constantly, even Paul and I, we didn't have this meet. This is not the first time we scheduled the meeting to have this interview. I kept moving it around because I was overloaded and I wanted to be present and rested before actually meeting with him. So taking pit stops, it's not just taking that walk during lunch because everybody, there you go. You're trying to squeeze something else in. Being still, I actually feel a lot better by doing a little bit less because if I do a little bit less and I can't get to everything, maybe not everything was important. So again, another tip for your listeners.
Yeah, being still, this whole idea of creating margin, I think it's really
Yeah.
important. And like what you're talking about with the small wins and not just moving on to the next thing, that is something I am constantly working on because the way, and I'm sure you relate to it for sure. And I'm sure, I think most people who listen to podcasts like yours or mine relate to this because we're high achievers, we want to get stuff done. We want to have that feeling of accomplishment. But I like what your mindset coach was telling you between the high achieving versus high performing, just making sure that it's more than just one aspect of your life because it's really easy to over index on the area that you feel like you're doing really well and then ignore all the other parts of it of your life.
And another thing is celebrating the small wins because the other thing was because again, high achievers, okay, I did that, move on. Oh my God. So for instance, I'm looking to be on bigger stages, more speaking opportunities. And yes, podcasting is a virtual stage for which we're sharing conversation or I'm sharing my thoughts with you. But it was always like, I'm going for the bigger stage. But then it was like, but I'm not celebrating as much these interactions. Or by the way, I'm starting to get pitched to get onto my show. Now, you and I found each other. So I invited you, you invited me. But I'm getting people saying, hey, I'd love to be on your podcast. I can offer these insights to your audience. And I'm saying to myself, I'm getting like 3, 5 a day now. Those are all leading indicators that my voice, my platform, my stage is relevant. So now I actually got this large board over here with about 200 post-it notes, and one column is all associated with podcast guesting, podcast hosting, and all of those cold pitches, because that's an indicator, a leading indicator of sex. So I'm celebrating. Ooh, I've got 3 today. I've got 5 tomorrow. I'm becoming relevant. So I ask everybody, yes, you have goals, financial, career, etc. But what are those wins? Did you have somebody stop into your office or stop by and say, hey, thanks for taking time. I really needed just to get that steam off my chest. Get a post-it note, right? Do tick marks each time somebody gave you a compliment or thanked you for the collaboration or that report. Write those things down because as you start seeing this accumulate, that's money in the bank. You know that the value you're putting out there, people are seeing it and know that in yourself, that's a leading indicator of your success, not always what somebody says in a performance review.
Mm, having those leading indicators instead of waiting for the
Yeah.
lagging indicators. That's so good.
Yeah.
It reminds me of a book I read a few years ago called Relentless Solution Focus. And they talked, I don't know if you've heard of the book or not.
No.
I think I don't think it's as well known, but I had the opportunity to meet the authors, and they've been on the show too. And it's a really cool concept behind it. But behind it is really focusing on solutions instead of the problems, because the whole idea of like we have problem centered thinking instead of solution centered thinking. But what
Yeah.
you were saying about a lot of stuff with the process itself as opposed to the goals is one of the things they talk about is like daily, like you're identifying what the process goals were, the things that you're doing, whether or not they're leading to results yet, and then celebrating those wins. Like you're supposed to celebrate 3 different wins every day. So it forces you to be in that mindset on focusing, like, even if things weren't going everything didn't go well, you still have to find 3 things that went well and you're focusing on the solution. So even if, okay, this didn't go well, what am I going to do tomorrow? Or what's one thing I can do to make this better? And you're not trying to come up with a 5, 10 step plan. It's just one thing. And they, in the whole book, they talk about different ways that people in the past have been able to accomplish that from seemingly traumatic situations and just apply that concept to our life.
And it's turning negative perceptions or, hey, I'm not getting what I want into something that's positive and constructive. And to add on to what you said, again, I appreciate the work you do for others, mentoring and coaching people. One of my coaches, I was frustrated, like, oh, I'm working so hard. I'm not getting the results that I want, whether it's on social media engagement or am I getting enough inbound referrals for my business. What do I need to do? What do I need to change? I want to be in control. Well, one, she said, you're not really in control, which was terrible for me. I can only control myself and what I do. But when we were talking about results, I'm not getting the results that I want. She says, Deb, are you getting results every day? Yes. But they may not be the ones that you want. I said, right. But I said, are you getting results every day based on the things that you're doing? And I said, yes, you're right. And it put me to a place like my social media. I put out content. I put out video on social media. Well, how am I doing on LinkedIn? How am I doing on Instagram? I don't do TikTok, but I do YouTube. And wait, I looked at it and I looked back over the past 5 months. If I had not been doing the things I was doing, I've gained followers on LinkedIn. I've gained followers on Instagram. I'm getting followers on YouTube. I am getting results now. Did I get the prize? Did I get a referral? No, but people are watching me. And sometimes when I get a referral for business, it's only after somebody referred me and then they check me out. What's she doing on social media? So all of that had relevance. So maybe I'm saying like, oh, I'm not getting the gig, but wait a second. Leading indicators. I'm getting more followers. I'm getting more relevant. People are commenting on my stuff. They like, you invited me onto the podcast. You like what I have to say. I am getting results every day as a leading indicator. Maybe not what I want, but I can learn from them. Oh, I'm not getting as much on YouTube. Maybe I need to publish, maybe I need to put different hashtags. That's another story trying to figure out
Oh my
hashtags.
gosh.
I need help there. But anyway, but just know
Keywords.
we're getting results every day and that reflection every day. Am I getting the right ones? What do I learn? What can I do different?
Yeah. What can you learn and what can you do different it's a key thing, an ever learning process. And it was really cool how we even got connected on LinkedIn. So
Neil?
I'm gonna
Neil?
embarrass myself for a second because it was on me because I think we had been connected for a while. And I think you had sent me a message and I didn't respond because I didn't see it for a very long time. And then you sent me a follow-up message and I think we had seen each other's content for a while.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's funny when you had messaged me, I had been thinking, I'd seen your show, I'd seen your content. I'd been thinking like, I need to at some point reach out to you. But then I don't know why I didn't. But then you reached out to me and you had me on the show. And I was like, I need to have you on my show too, if you have the time. But I think it's just one of those things because what I noticed from you immediately is that you're such a connector. You connect really well with people, but you also connect people with other people. So even in this situation, there's been two people that have been on my show that you connected me with being Mariana and Neil.
Neil, yeah.
And so, and I know that's just something you do really well. When we had first had a conversation, you asked about what I do and you share what you did. And you're like, are there people that you could potentially help connect me with? And I think it doesn't always happen because a lot of the times people you can tell, just in it for themselves. But with you, it really stuck
Sure.
out to me that you're really trying to connect and better everyone you come across with.
And thank you for that. And that too, I learned later in life, which I think is a really strong message for people. Again, depending on how you were brought up, depending on the culture, it's very individualistic. Every man, lady for himself. Yes, we do things through teams and we get certain results. But I learned later, and I had to figure it out. Don't just say, hey, let me introduce you to three people and I check the box and it's of no value to you. But through deep listening, through that connection, when I was interviewing you, at the same time I'm asking you questions and listening to you, I'm thinking, oh my God, he does this. Oh, this would be super cool if I could introduce to that person. I am learning the art of if we can give to others without seeking anything in return, without being taken advantage of, etc. I am seeing over time, we have to be patient. We are not a patient society, but over time, 18 to 24 months, I'm starting to see, hey, I'd love to introduce you to such, and that just happened to me a few hours ago. Met this person. I never would have found this person otherwise. But the next thing I know, okay, I appreciate the work that he does. He could be a resource for some of my clients. He said, I could introduce you to my organization. You could be maybe a moderator or speaker. And I said, wait a second, let me invite you onto my podcast. You get the Deb experience, what it's like to hear my voice and interview you. And then we'll see. if maybe you want to invite me over here. So there's a lot of this give and take. But because of a relationship I built
Mhm.
like 2 years ago, I get introduced to this person. I think they're cool. They think I'm cool. Next thing you know, okay, we're collaborating. So again, people out there, I just implore upon you. I know you're busy, family, community, whatever it is. I didn't do it very well. Try to find ways to connect with people, maybe first with your community, but also professional networking groups. Build a network outside of your job because if for some reason you're changing roles, the worst time to find a network is then. You should have one there
Yeah.
and see where you can give back a little bit. I know you don't have a lot of time at this point in your career, but see where you can give back. And if nothing else, just somebody to talk to, go out for a beverage or something. People will remember those deeper relationships far beyond the results that you got in your job.
Yeah. That's very true. That's good advice. Is those relationships are key. And I think it's a lot of times that do career coaching is that people are not building those relationships until they need them. And so they're like in crisis mode, desperation mode, because they're like, oh, I need all these connections, but I wasn't talking to anyone. I just had my head
Yeah.
down, or I didn't know how to. I feel like a lot of time is people don't know how to build those connections.
So again, a person like Paul, a person like me can be your guide because I just didn't have a support system. And that's why I do a lot of the work that I do now is that the podcast that I put out is meant to be a support system for wherever they're at in their career. And I actually meet a lot of the people. They've either been guests on my show or I meet them. I've been listening to your show and they tell me how it has been helping them, where you got me to think, or I had somebody say once, I applied that tip and I was able to get a customer to convert. Those are leading indicators of like, okay, I'm doing the right thing or validation. So try to take the time to make those connections. And I'm going to stop there because I did lose my train of thought. Like,
No, you're
but,
good.
but yeah.
Yeah, taking the time to make those connections because I think I've talked about it before, but I think the thing to realize is that the most important things in life are not things, they are relationships. And that comes from a power phrase from a nonprofit I've been a part of. And it's when it all comes down to it, everything that happens comes from knowing someone, like whether it's a job or an opportunity. Like, yes, you could come across things by yourself or meet people, but it makes things so much easier when you have someone that's in the room going to bat for you. I'm sure that
Mhm.
like you've had experiences and I know you've done it for others that you know this person, you are able to talk about them when they're not around. And I think the other thing with the connecting piece is talk about the things that you're passionate about, that you enjoy doing. So I'm sure there's someone on the show, and I want to come back to this for a reason, because I'm curious. Because you mentioned the fact that you are a curler, you do curling. That's I don't know if anyone actually no one else on the show has mentioned that, whether or not they do curling or not. And that right there is a way to connect. I think that's a key way to do it is when you start to talk about the things that you're passionate about, things that you enjoy, even if it doesn't directly relate to your work or things you're doing, that's an easy way to build connection.
And it makes people memorable. I mean, sometimes if you go, and I'll just reference if you go to a networking event and you're really bad with remembering people's names, well, they give you tips and tricks about, okay, they look like Charlie Brown because maybe their hair is a little scraggly and they're a little bit, just, and their name happens to be Charlie, just find things to connect and remember people. And I will tell you, again, think about if you're in a fast-paced environment trying to go, 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 you can interview, you can deliver results. People won't remember you, but, we just were talking and I told him I'm a curler. I've been curling for 17 years. And by the way, I didn't tell you I'm a silver medalist in marina curling. You need to stand out and be interesting. And if you happen to have kids, you talk about your kids, you talk about sports, what teams do you cheer on? Do you like, are you into wine or beer, things like that. Just find those little elements. Not everybody is into that. They like to keep it all business. But at the end of the day, you want to be memorable because sometimes we won't remember people's names. But when you say like I'm in a networking event, oh, I got a guy. I got a guy. They have this brewery over here. Cool name given the brewery. You want to leave something to remember them by because they're not going to remember your stats, that report, that whatever you did, but they're going to say you're that person or whatever, and this is how you made me feel. And I'm going to come back to a point you made. So let's just say you're not in your own business, you're not networking and trying to find another job, but building those relationships and those advocates internally. So important. If you are responsible for a particular project or new initiative and you have to report to a leadership team on the status of it, as STEM professionals, here's my graft. It's going up or down. We need to buy new equipment. The sky is falling. We are programmed to just deliver information. But sometimes when we have to deliver information or presentation, we need to make a major change. Sometimes you are met with adversity, questions. Let's defer this. Let's take that offline. Relationships. Who do you think might be the person that'll actually shoot it down? Why don't you meet with them ahead of time and say, this is an important initiative. I value your opinion. I know you always have something to say about, can I run this by you and let them enrich it, comment on it? You might change something as a result of it. By the time you actually go to present that, and again, it might be a touchy topic, you have a friend in the room because maybe they co-created some of the information. When you get to this thing of like, oh, we got to spend $20,000, that person, that relationship that you build, he might say, and the reason why we need to do this is if we don't, we're going to actually lose more money. Building those internal relationships can kind of grease the skids and make the work that you're trying to do so much easier. So think about in the context of your daily work, what relationships might you need to build in order to make your work that much easier?
Absolutely. And work on building them before you need them, as you
Absolutely.
mentioned earlier. Well, we've been going for a little while, but I'm just wondering if there's anything we haven't talked about with either your story or words of advice of leadership for the young professionals listening that maybe some of them have thought about starting their own business so they don't know where to start. I don't know if there's anything you would share.
Well, it's a broad question, but it's an important question because I think the point of it is at some point along the way, either the young professional feels stuck, or maybe they were in a good situation and the leadership changed. Things change, we lose our confidence, or I was just let go, or I've got this itch, I want to start something new. Also, there's this element of confidence. Should I do it? Can I do it? I've never done that before. Should I start looking for another job because I don't like what's happening here? We hold ourselves back and defer to a place of lacking confidence. But I want people to reflect out there. Well, look at how many times you got your first job out of college. You actually made a leap to another job or you were recruited for such and you didn't know anything about it. You had to figure it out. You're an engineer, you're a scientist. You figure things out. That's your and then when we reflect forward, like, "Oh, I can't do that. I've never done that before." I would say, "Gals, please stop and just know your greatest gift is you are resilient. Also, you have taken risks on yourself. Why aren't you taking it now?" So I need you to think a little bit about not, I don't want to take a risk. I can't do that. I'm not confident, and celebrate all the things you've done up until this point. You figured it out. You figured out how to get through college. You figured out how to get a job. You figured out how to pay for your first apartment. You can figure stuff out. So be confident in yourself that if you take a leap, you're going to figure it out. You might mess up. You might learn a few things. You might grow along the way. All good things. No, you're going to figure it out. And those are my last words.
Those are amazing last words. Not necessarily your last words, because I definitely want you to share more about how people can stay connected with you, whether it's your podcast, website, consulting, all the things.
Yeah. So thank you, Paul. Thank you so much for the opportunity just to let me be on your stage for a bit and share some thoughts with your
Absolutely.
audience. But my website, dropinceo.com, dropinceo.com is the best place to see a little bit about what Deb does and how I can help people. But I've got a contact page if you want to reach out to me. I love having conversations and meeting new people. So don't be afraid or contact me on LinkedIn. But also, shameless plug for the podcast, the Drop In CEO podcast, week after week. I air two shows. I am a good listener, a good talker. I've got amazing guests, people like Paul. Please check out the website, also my YouTube channel, because I also put all the shows on YouTube, just like Paul. But I just want to say thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk to your audience, get to know more about you. And I'm just grateful to have been here. Thank you so much.
Absolutely, Deb. And just to echo your show, if people who are listening or watching this, if you like this show, you will love Deb's show. Definitely check it out. So many impactful people on the show, including herself, just talking about a lot of things in the CEO's world and even people who want to work their way into the CEO world. So I think it's, if you have any passion for leadership and self-thought, Drop In CEO, you have to check it out.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. But it was just really cool to dive into your story. Even what I love about your story is that it wasn't a direct path. And I think a lot of times thinking back as young professionals or even in college, a lot of times you think that, oh, I have to pick one thing and just go directly into it. But you're talking about being in biology, and then your mom said you were pre-med, whether or not maybe that was true. And then going into the biomedical field and then doing manufacturing, working way all the way up to being like the head of quality of an organization, mentoring, developing people, and just feeling like that wasn't enough, that you wanted to do a little bit more, wanted to branch out on your own, taking that step, taking that leap. And then even you took your own advice on like all the stuff you'd done up until that point to make that jump to create your consulting business. And the fact that you were just full of so much life and energy, that you're doing all these things, but you still find the time to connect with people, to empower people with your podcast, doing 2 episodes a week. Like, I don't know how you're going to do that along with, you didn't talk about all the speaking you do, the moderation you do on top of the consulting, the curling, all of the things, being a wife, a mother, all the things. So just wanted to give you your flowers for all the work you've done and the impact you've made.
But just know and thank you for, so where should I send the check for that validation? But it's also, I'm only able to do that because I am reflecting all the time. I am seeking better balance. I am investing in sleep, my nutrition, and my well being so that I have the energy to continue to connect and connect people. So thank you so much for recognizing that. And just know you talked about me having kind of a windy, wavy path. When people say, like, and look at what you're doing now, well, I often say, well, maybe I've become what I once was, that person that liked to talk all the time and be on a stage. And I was crafty and I read and I wrote and all that stuff. I'm in a place now where maybe it's just gone full circle
Mm,
in a different way. So thank
absolutely.
you again so much. This has been a great conversation.
It's an amazing conversation. I know everyone listening, you got something from this. Definitely check out Deb's podcast, Drop In CEO. Stay connected with her on her website and socials, and keep being incredible.
Be sure to rate and review this podcast on your favorite podcast listening platform. We'll see you here next time. And be incredible. Incredible.